a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
KLEK 102.5 FM, good morning to you on your Monday. Happy President's Day to each and every one of you out there listening. This is Community Conversations. Cato Wonder is in the studio with you. My co-host, Mrs. Quabila Harden, is not able to join us today. She's under the weather. We're going to continue to keep her lifted up in prayer for a speedy recovery. Today joining us in the studio is Dr. Deborah Persell. She is a professor of emergency management, disaster preparedness.
Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management
on the campus of Arkansas State University. And today we are going to discuss the topic of emergency management and disaster preparedness. So Dr. Persell has asked me to call her Debbie, so I'm going to call her Debbie from this point on. So Debbie, how are you doing today, first of all?
I'm just fine, and thank you for this invitation, and good morning to all of your listeners.
And thank you for stopping by the studio. So Debbie, what do you mean when you say we should prepare for a disaster?
I mean that we should explicitly, deliberately take some actions that would help us survive and recover from a disaster should it happen.
All right. So what are some of the ways in which people can prepare for a disaster?
There are a great many of ways that begin with personal for me as a person, that I would think about what I would do in case of a disaster, that I would develop a plan for that I would let someone else know about, that I would prepare my business, my family, even my place of worship, so that should a disaster happen, all of us know what to do and how to begin to do that.
All right. So Debbie, what are some of the most frequent disasters that are in Northeast Arkansas?
Well, in Northeast Arkansas, we're mostly at risk for weather-related disasters. That would include winter storms such as ice and snow. It also includes a lot of the summer storms related to severe thunderstorms, tornadoes. Beyond those kinds of risk, we certainly are susceptible to earthquake as well.
Now, regarding earthquakes, I know some people may realize and some people may not realize that we are in a seismic zone, which is the New Madrid fault zone, and occasionally you may see news stories about a small earthquake in the area and ask that you feel it. But scientists think that sometime, potentially in our lifetime, the next 100 years or so, that there's a significant risk for a major earthquake, and that there is some concern that people may not be prepared for it. Buildings may not be able to withstand such a powerful earthquake. There's not been much preparedness for that. So what are you all doing to try to make people a little bit more prepared for a major earthquake?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because we're actually involved in a great deal of earthquake preparedness activities even across the state and the region. You're absolutely correct that we sit on the New Madrid Fault, and should a major earthquake occur on that fault, it's not just Northeast Arkansas that would be impacted, but pretty much an 8-state region would have the most devastation. And even this summer, we're co-sponsoring and hosting part of a major earthquake exercise where people from all over the country that are members of search and rescue teams and building assessment teams are going to be coming even to our campus to learn more about doing that and practice doing that should there be an earthquake on the New Madrid Fault. There's a lot of things people can do in their homes to help prevent the most damage from something like that don't cost any money at all, with the exception of maybe a little hard work, getting some longer screws and a hammer and a screwdriver and actually attaching like chest of drawers or dressers to the wall so that should a shaking occur, they're not going to fall over and the drawers aren't going to fall out and hurt someone. Putting some latches on your cabinet doors and the drawers so that should shaking occur, then those cabinets aren't going to open and all that glass come out and break and injure somebody like that. Strapping hot water heaters to the wall, again, so that when the shaking starts, that doesn't fall over and we end up with a major event there where someone gets hurt. So those are pretty cheaply done and actually provide a lot of safety precautions for a family.
And something like that can help not in just the case of an earthquake, but could also help in the instance of a tornado. Tornado comes blowing winds 200 and 300 miles an hour. It, may minimize, stuff being blown all over the place.
Well, yes, and I think in a tornado, it's the difference between an earthquake and a tornado is that the shaking is going to cause things to fall off the walls and are going to cause things to buildings to collapse in a different way. A tornado is going to blow everything away. So there's not really a safe zone per se for earthquakes to go to in a house like there is for a tornado. But for tornadoes, which the season we're coming up on pretty quickly here, families need to identify now in their home where their safe place is, that innermost location where they can go and be somewhat protected from flying debris.
All right. We are speaking with Dr. Deborah Persell. I don't know why I'm having trouble pronouncing that today. On KLEK 102.5 FM, we are talking about disaster preparedness. If you have a question for Dr. Persell, the phone number is 870-277-1080. Once again, that phone number is 870-277-1080. We're also streaming live on our Facebook live stream. If you have a comment or a question, you can post them on our Facebook live Facebook live feed as well. All right, Debbie, now I'm looking on these talking points, and it mentions something about a disaster preparedness kit. So tell me a little bit about that kit and what's all in it, and how can a person either make one or get one?
Well, first let me say there's a couple of really good sites that you can go to online, and that is ready.gov or the American Red Cross site. And both of those websites have listed all the different items that families might want to consider for their disaster preparedness kit for both their home and for their car. It's a long list.
Well, at least name some of the bigger, more important items that goes into it.
Batteries, a cell phone charger, non-perishable food items, all your contact emergency information, candles, flashlights. Those kinds of things are relatively easy to acquire and don't require a lot of expense.
Okay. So now, what if a person just can't afford to get a kit? Are there resources available that can help them, such as different agencies that people can donate donate materials for kits?
Well, the first thing is to start with the things that don't cost money. It costs no money at all to write down a disaster plan, what you're going to do, where your family's going to meet. It costs no money at all to develop that communication plan. Who are you going to call in your family to notify them that you're safe or that you are in need of assistance? You need an out-of-state contact for that. And you can make those copies and give them to every single family member. They can carry them in their wallets in case something goes wrong with their cell phone. They can't remember, they didn't have the numbers plugged in. And then you can start buying one item at a time. So buy one bag of rice or one canned item of food a week, and that then isn't very expensive. You can also, for those who are members of community agencies that want to perhaps help people do this, your agency could take a look at those list of items and say, this week, would the community donate this item, and then identify your families and help them put together their kits. Just an old book bag even is great for family members to put personal items in, so that should they have to leave their home, that kit's already packed, they pick it up, they walk out the door, and they have those important things with them.
KLEK, who's this?
Hi, this is Quabila.
Hey, Quabila.
Sorry to butt in. Hi, Miss Dr. Deborah.
Good morning, Quabila.
I just wanted to jump in right quick. I'm listening. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there, but I'm watching the interviews. And I just want to throw in that you were talking about making a plan, and also people need to be aware that the E911 has an online registry where you can submit pictures and information. So again, just in case of an emergency, if you have to call 911, they will know where you are. They'll have a diagram of your home and things of that nature. So just wanted people to be more aware of that. And it's really easy to go online and set that up.
Absolutely. That's a really important resource, and thanks for calling in and reminding us about that. Smart 911. You do need to go in and do that now, because that information isn't readily available without you going in and putting it there, and there's no charge to that. There's also some free apps that families can put on their phone that help them get alerts when bad weather or disasters are happening. So the Red Cross has a free app. I know that there are other radio stations and TV stations that have apps that are weather related, that you get right to your smart device, that warning the minute it happens for where you're at.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you so much for doing the interview, and I apologize again for not being there. I'm going to hang up now and continue to listen in.
Feel better.
All right, Kubila, thank you for the call, and of course, I do echo those sentiments. Kubila, get better. We don't want to definitely keep Kubila lifted up in prayer as she continues to heal, and also pray for myself. I'm going to the doctor after this interview, getting my scan, getting ready to have my thyroid removed. But enough of that. We got an interview to continue, but just keep all of us lifted up in prayer. We are speaking with Dr. Deborah Persell of Arkansas State University, and we are talking about disaster preparedness. And as Kubila mentioned, sign up for that Smart 911. You can go to that website, smart911.com. Sign up. You can put your information in. You can even upload a floor plan of your house, pictures of your house. So if you ever, your medical information, pictures of your family, even pictures, I believe, of your pets. So if any kind of thing comes up, and especially if you're unconscious and someone has to call from your phone, all of the relevant information will pop up on the dispatcher's computer. It is secure, so won't anyone snoop into your private life or anything such as that. Getting back to our conversation, once a disaster hits, what can people do to help?
Well, once a disaster hits, those who are in the emergency management business, you're going to see, like Cricket, in this local area, Cricket County Emergency Management, you're going to see the 911, Jonesboro City emergency management officials, all working to provide life safety information first. So the first important thing is to listen to the radio or the TV station, or go online to those sites I mentioned to get those instructions that may save your life. They will also be aware of what services are being activated for this particular disaster, and they will post phone numbers, they'll post websites, they may give actual physical locations where you can go to get acceptance. Almost always when there's the need for a shelter where people have lost the ability to stay in their homes, those shelter announcements are posted regularly, and most people know where those tend to be because the Red Cross has gone out in advance and they've established and pre-identified some of those shelters. Don't be afraid to take advantage of those resources. I know a lot of people think that FEMA's going to come in and they're going to give money to the community and money to individual families to survive this disaster, and the standards for receiving FEMA money have really changed, and it's all based on the damage per capita, and there's a minimum standard, and it's really difficult to reach the threshold where individuals like you and me would actually get some money from FEMA. That just rarely happens anymore.
And I imagine it's also time consuming as well.
Well, and yes, and it takes them a little while to get there, and then you have to present all the documentation, et cetera, to be able to get that. So that's why it goes back to our conversation earlier of why it's so important to prepare yourself, because we know that we could have to take care of ourselves before any help arrives for 72 to 96 hours. So think about what that would mean. What for your family, what would you have to do that? And it's different for every family depending on who makes that up. If you've got a family that's got infants, you're going to have to think about that 72 to 96 hours in terms of diapers and perhaps formula or those things that an infant requires. If you've got a family member who has a medical condition that requires medications or assistive devices, then you have to think about what they would need for that 72 to 96 hours to be able to survive. Think about those in your circle who might live alone or might need some assistance, and plan in advance to be their person to reach out to them and make sure that they're okay.
And we certainly thank you for letting all our listeners know about that. We are speaking with Dr. Deborah Persell of Arkansas State University, talking disaster preparedness. You mentioned some websites earlier where people can get resources. For those of you just tuning in, could you please give those websites again?
Sure. Ready.gov. You don't have to type in the www, just ready.gov will get you to a host of resources there, and the American Red Cross, their disaster section.
So it's ready.gov, the American Red Cross website, and then also let's add that smart911.com to that list as well for resources that can help in a case of a disaster. Now, if a disaster hits and a person needs help, what would that person do then?
Well, the first thing is you have to let someone know that you need help. And I know that often one of the first things people do is reach out on their social media. But you need to reach out to those who can have the capacity to respond. It's true that emergency management now monitors social media, but they need that call from you. So calling 911, calling for a family for assistance, letting someone know that you need help, and then taking advantage of those resources that the community has stood up to offer help.
Okay, and where can a person go for more information locally on how to prepare for specific types of disasters? We mentioned the websites, but what about locally as far as like stuff specific to KLEK County or the city of Jonesboro?
Well, there certainly is the KLEK County Office of Emergency Management, and they would you can reach out to them. You can reach out to the city. I know that David Moore is KLEK County Emergency Manager. Jeff Presley is the E911 Director for the city. You can go to the library and look up some resources for disaster preparedness there. You can go to the American Red Cross and ask for some of their printed materials. So there's a lot of resources around for this.
And we've had Jeff Presley on the show several times talking about E911. We'll probably have him back on the show in the not too distant future to kind of get an update of what's going on with the E911 and Smart 911 system. We are speaking with Dr. Deborah Persell of Arkansas State University, talking disaster preparedness. Now, we were speaking off the air about the program. Tell us a little bit about the program. It's a new program, and tell what the program is about and how you got involved with it.
Oh, sure. We actually have at Arkansas State University 3 degrees in disaster preparedness and emergency management. There's an associate, a bachelor's, and a master's. We have a multidisciplinary minor that a student from any major can take the minor, and we also have a graduate certificate. And these programs have been around since 2011, and they were born out of a need to have professionals in this field. The discipline of emergency management in and of itself is a relatively new discipline, and so we feel like that we're on the cutting edge of what academia has to offer in these areas.
And what is your specific role in the program? Are you the director, or are you just a professor? What are some of the classes that you teach in the program?
I am the director, and I actually developed the program, so I've been with it from the very beginning. I'm by licensure and certification, I'm a nurse. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner, and my focus switched from that on 9/11. Like many other people, I was wanting to really figure out how that I could make a contribution to our country's response. I couldn't go, but I was a nurse educator, and that I could do. And so then I began developing some courses for nurses in disaster preparedness, and the interest was so great, it's now migrated to these 3 degrees.
So is there an opportunity for you to spread this curriculum to other universities and colleges that may want to develop their own disaster preparedness programs?
There are actually growing numbers of colleges and universities around the country that are offering these. You can go to FEMA's higher education website and find a list of all of those colleges that have submitted their credentials to them for approval. Every year in June, we go to FEMA's Emergency Management Institute out in Maryland, and we interact with the officials from FEMA and these educators from across the country that are working very hard to make these programs the best that they can be.
Okay. And what does the program do to help, let's say, for the smaller communities that may not have the resources that the larger cities do, that may not can afford to do much planning? Do y'all like train students to go to these cities and help them with their plans, or set up workshops or something to help them get their plans together?
We do have opportunities for student internships, and so when possible and when we know of a need, then we're more than willing to work to place a student in an area where they can learn and practice the skill along with those professionals. The other thing is that we're an online program. All of our degrees are. And so those smaller communities that are maybe wanting to increase their capacity for emergency management, they could actually send their professionals to take a class at a time, perhaps in emergency management, so that they can increase their own expertise in their community.
All right, well, that certainly sounds good. Dr. Persell, as we get ready to wrap up, just once again, let the listeners know what resources are available to help them with disaster preparedness. Give those websites again, and let them know how, if they can get in touch with you, if they have any questions or just anything that we did not cover that you would like to get out there to the listeners and the viewers.
Sure. I think if I had a final message for all of you, it would be get a plan. Make your plan for yourself and for your family. It saves lives. You can find resources for that plan at ready.gov and the American Red Cross, and register for SMART 911. You're more than welcome to reach out to me at the university. You can go to the website university, and under A to Z index, you can find disaster preparedness and emergency management and locate any of us there.
Alrighty. We have a Facebook shout out. Shout out to our own Dr. Sharice Jones Branch for checking in on our Facebook Live video. Thank you, Dr. Branch, for checking in on our video. And we want to thank Dr. Deborah Persell for stopping in to let the listeners know about disaster preparedness. Don't forget those websites, ready.gov, the American Red Cross, smart911.com. Get your disaster plan together. Do it now, because you never know when a disaster may hit. So we want all of the listeners out there to be prepared, and so that everyone can be safe and that we can continue to enjoy our lives with our friends and our families and those who love. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for tuning in. May each and every one of you have a great and blessed day. Continue to keep my co-host Quabila Harden as well as myself, and everyone out there listening, let's lift each other up in prayer and try to be good and do well for one another. This is Cato Wonder, and you're listening to KLEK 102.5 FM.